Hello, Cancer Warriors. Welcome to Power Pantaloons podcast. My name is Tanya Balarjan, and today with us we have Howard Brown. In Shining Brightly, Silicon Valley pioneer, cancer survivor, and interfaith peacemaker, Howard Brown shares keys to resilience for successful entrepreneurs, patient advocates, and community leaders. He shows us how to reach out to our families, our communities, and around the world to form truly supportive connections and friendships. From Howard's career as a Silicon Valley entrepreneur to his conquering metastatic stage 4 cancer, not once, but twice, to his compassionate outreach as a peacemaker, to his love of sports, this ultimately is not one man's story. Shining Brightly is a story shared by countless men and women and may wind up changing your life as well. With each true story he tells in the pages, Howard invites readers to picture how they might join him in shining more light in our world. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm so glad to be here. This is amazing. I'm just I love your podcast, and I love how you're helping people, and I hope to do so today with you.
I can't wait to hear about how you kicked cancer's ass not once, but twice. You want to start with the first story?
Sure. Listen, kicking cancer's ass should be everyone's business that gets diagnosed. It's hard, but that's the goal, right? And so I'm 23 years old, and I am driving down the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and I notice a red bump on my cheekbone. And I get out and I use a payphone because that's what we used that back then. We had payphones in 1989, right? Payphones, yeah. And I called back to my parents and they said, I'm on the Penn Turnpike, probably near Pittsburgh, and I have a little bump that I noticed. Well, it's probably nothing, right? That's all they say, on your way. So I'm going out to Dayton, Ohio to start a big promotion at NCR Corporation. And this little bump gets bigger. And but it's not bothering me. It doesn't look great. And I wore glasses at the time. So it was starting to get, it was the size of a little bit of a, it looks like a pimple, then a penny, and then a marble. And it was red and it didn't look great. But I was working out, getting into my job, and my mom came out to visit to get me set up my apartment. Like, you need dishes and sheets. Those are all important things that the guys don't really know. And my mom came out to help me with, and it was getting bigger. And she's like, we should get that checked out. But we didn't know anybody in Ohio. We were just there for, 2 weeks. And I was coming back to Boston to speak. So I came back, and my dad played a trick on me. We usually go do something athletic and then go have breakfast, go to the gym or go play tennis or go jogging, whatever it is. And he took me to the community hospital, and they said, yeah, this is a cyst. Take some antibiotic and you'll be fine. Well, that was on Saturday. Monday, I gave my speech in Boston to the American Bankers Association, and I came back to have dinner with them. And instead of going to dinner, early dinner, he basically took me to that community hospital, and this time they took biopsies, not one but two. And I kind of sensed something, but I didn't know. The doctor goes, I've never seen an ununiform cell structure like that. I had no idea what that meant. So they sent it off to the lab, and I got called. My parents said it seemed like forever, but it was probably 3 or 4 or 5 weeks later because things didn't work as quickly, right? And I got called back to Boston. And I go back to this community hospital, and I didn't have one doctor waiting for me. I had 7. I had 7 doctors waiting for me, and they basically didn't even do anything. They just said, they were there with me, but they said, you have an appointment at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Those are the first time I ever heard the word cancer, as a 23-year-old. So I go to Dana-Farber, and we say it in Boston, Dana-Farber, and we go there. And the first thing I noticed, Tanya, was that I didn't really fit because there was older people or younger people. And at 23, I decided to go sit with the pediatrics, the 5-year-olds that were playing games and eating candy, because I didn't fit with the older people. And I went through a whole bunch of tests. And finally, this older doctor who invented chemotherapy for blood cancers and this young Harvard fellow asked me and my parents to come back to his office. I see all these big plaques on the wall and degrees. And he says to me, you, Howard, have stage 4 E accelerated T-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I can tell you, like when you heard this in 2007 and I heard this in 1989, I didn't hear another word. I think it's the brain shutting down. I don't know. I didn't hear anything, Tanya.
It's a common response. Uh, when we receive some traumatic news like that, for us to just buffer or turn off for a little while.
I think so. You know, just at maximum overload, right? So I look back, my mom's crying, my dad's a statue, and I look up at this doctor standing behind in a white coat, and it says Harvard Fellow, and his name was Eric Rubin. He's become a very close friend of mine, and I end up, what's he talking about? And he's like, he goes, you know, you're a sick young man. We've got to treat you. And left the office that day and we went home. I live about 40 minutes from, 30 minutes from Boston. And we called my twin sister and over. And my dad, on the way home, after he dropped us off, went to the library and got a book on cancer. That's how we didn't know anything.
Yeah.
They didn't know, and they gave us a binder, right? They gave us a stack of paperwork. I didn't understand any of it. And we pretty much just cried. And this is the time of landlines with busy signals. So as my mom was trying to tell people what the little that we knew, I was having to go back and do more tests. And then a few days later, or the following week, I can't even remember now, this is October of 89, I had to do my first chemotherapy session. I don't think I slept a wink. I went in and I met my infusion nurse, Kathy Lynch, super sweetheart. And she did some preliminary testing. They took some blood. And then Dr. Rubin comes out and he says, we're not doing chemo today. Your liver function is too high. It's not safe. I was like, oh my God, I'm freaking out here. You know, you told me that I'm stage 4, that I have 6 months to live. I'm a sick young man. And they said, well, it's not safe. But he goes, we're going to go send you on a field trip. You know, what is this? You know, third grade, we're going on a field trip. Right, exactly. So he goes, we're going to the cryogenic center. I said, cryo, what are we talking about? And he said, it's the sperm bank. And I said, well, you told me that I have 6 months to live. And why are we doing this? He goes, trust me, just go do it. He goes, it'll feel good. Ha ha. And, but we went and I delivered a sample and I sort of forgot about it, but that becomes important. So I go to my 5th year high school reunion, right? And I'm bald already because I had already started treatment and it's very toxic. And I lost my hair already. And, you know, for guys, it's not such a big deal. You wear a baseball cap, you put on a bandana, you put on a beanie cap. So I go to my 5th year high school reunion and I'm like the first person that, you know, besides like this old uncle or old grandpa, that these kids had known anyone with cancer. They didn't know anybody that young. And I heard it, you know, dead man walking, you know, poor bastard, he's not going to make it. And I didn't know if I was going to make it. And quite frankly, I did a ton of chemotherapy and none of it was working because they kept changing protocols, meaning they changed the cocktail mix of chemo, because if something doesn't work and it keeps coming back or it comes back more aggressive, they change it up. And I went down to Florida to visit my grandparents and I had breakouts all over me. They rushed me back home, didn't get much of a vacation. And finally in February, we got a piece of news and we considered it good at the time. But my twin sister, CJ Brown Gingras, she typed for bone marrow transplant and she was an exact match. So this is my twin sister who's 5 minutes older. And it's such a, you know, great thing that we had her to be a match, because that's hitting the lottery. 1 in 25,000 chance of actually being a match by itself. So that's there. Then they have to get you into some type of stable condition. But on May 17th, I entered Dana-Farber and they blasted me with chemotherapy, the cisplatins, the cytoxins, and I did full body radiation. So once in the morning, I'd be wrapped up like a mummy and I'd be taken over to Beth Israel Hospital, literally a 15-second ambulance ride, but I had no immune system. I was a boy in a bubble. And so I did my radiation. Then in the afternoon, I would do it. I have to wipe it over me. And it just knocked me out. What they were doing in the protocol back then was to wipe out my immune system. My sister came in May 24th of 1990, and it's 6 a.m. and they extracted bone marrow from her hip bones. And they did it under anesthesia and her hips were sore. But she was doing aerobics 3 or 4 days later. And they took that bone marrow and they actually scrub it and they cleanse it. And then they put it inside you and through infusion bag. And that they basically infuse me with it, and they wait to see if it's going to kill you right away, kill you quickly over time, or potentially over time is her bone marrow and her immune system are going to basically overtake the malignancy of lymphoma, and I'll live. And they don't know that right away. And so I was in an isolated room where people had to gowned up, sterilize, and come see me. So I was living in my own form of prison or bubble,
Yeah.
and with no immune system. And they were watching it and doing blood tests every day to see if it was working. And then eventually 34 days later, I got released to a general floor. And then maybe a couple weeks later, I got released to come home. And I started a clinical trial called interleukin-2 that strengthened my immune system. I was on that for 6 months. They'd come in and I call it an oil change once a week. They changed my cartridge. I'd wear a fanny pack. I had 2 double lumen Hickmans that were hanging from my chest. That's how they would infuse me. That's how they got liquids and protein in me and whatever I needed, and blood and platelets. And I basically, started to get better because it worked. My sister's immune system became my immune system. And by the way, I tease her and say, once a month I get my monthly call like you ladies do, right? So that's our running joke is that I get my monthly visitor. But no joking aside, I got my life back. I went to rehabilitate and build myself back up, and very fortunate to do so that her bone marrow worked. And that's cancer one. And I moved to California because my parents were my caregivers. I wanted to get my life back, and I wanted warm weather. I was selfishly wanted warm weather so I could play basketball almost all year round, because that's how I strengthened myself. And I built back up my mental toughness, my physical ability. I got back my career, and I also met my wife out there. So there's some good things that happened when I got my life back.
That's an amazing story. But you got diagnosed again. Like,
Well, yeah, 26 years later, I did. So, but a lot of stuff happened in between there. I got married, right? It's a chapter 6 in my book, The Love of My Life, and I met Lisa, and I met her through the Jewish community and volunteering, and I was adding service to my, what I was doing. I was charitable, but it was very intentional. And Lisa and I would help raise money or help people in need. And I also became a big brother, Jewish big brother to Ian at age 10. And I love that. It was one of the best things I ever did. Lisa helped encourage me there. And I was living my life again. And so we moved from LA to San Francisco, and miracle number 2, miracle 1 is sister's bone marrow, but miracle number 2, we called for the frozen sperm. We called for it and brought it out there and went through in vitro fertilization, a procedure called ICSI. It's very expensive, but Lisa grew 8 eggs, and they defrosted the sperm, and they put the best 4 swimmers inside Lisa's best 4 eggs. And we got our miracle baby, Emily. We call her our frozen kidsicle. All right. It's in the book, right? She's our frozen kidsicle, healthy baby girl. How blessed am I and Lisa to be able to have our own. Now, again, if I didn't have the frozen sperm, we could have adopted, we could have done surrogacy, we could have done a lot of things. But because of the wisdom or the God-given message that my Dr. Rubin got, 11 years earlier to actually go to the cryogenic center, we got to have a baby. And it's an incredible thing. It's amazing. And Miracle, she's here, visiting with me now. She's 22. She graduated University of Michigan. She's a TV reporter in Missoula, Montana. So we get to see her this week of Thanksgiving week. So it's incredible. So it's amazing. And but
that is amazing.
It's crazy, right? Right. So a miracle, 21 in 25,000 chance for a bone marrow, frozen sperm after 11 years frozen. And we moved to Michigan. My twin sister moved to Michigan, and we moved everywhere to Michigan so we could have families growing up together, cousins seeing each other. My in-laws here in Michigan. My parents were in Boston. And so we moved here in 2005. And I got my life back. I was basically the soccer dad for my daughter. I had my own, I'm an entrepreneur, technology entrepreneur. I had 2 platforms running. Everything was pretty good. We got to see my family a lot. And I was grateful for that. But I went in for my 50-year-old colonoscopy, and as you should, right? The screening age now is 45, unless you have family history or you have symptoms. But I went in fully expecting to wake up and say, See you in 5 years. Thanks, Howard. We clipped a polyp. We'll see you back in 5 years. That was not the case. I woke up and the doctor said, and I happen to know Dr. Phil, and I said, everything good? And he said, no, I found something. And when I find something, it's bad news. Well, I took a piece of it, I marked it, and we went out to pathology. And within a few days, I heard that I had colon cancer, and then staged it as stage 3 colon cancer because I had an 8.5 centimeter tumor inside my cecum, which is the small to the large intestine. It's called right-sided colon cancer. And I actually did something that your friend did for you. I took maybe a weekend where I was pissed. I just was like, oh my God, lightning struck again. And I said, oh my God, I'm a husband and now I'm a dad. I got to go, I got to go take care of this. I got to go make it. And so they basically did surgery and removed 13.5 inches of my colon. Men have 6 to 8, women have 4 to 6 feet of colon. So you have plenty of colon. It's rubber band like. And they took out, I think, 25 lymph nodes. One was still positive. So they wanted to do chemotherapy. So they installed a chemo port in my chest, not a double lumen Hickman. Technology worked again. And I started chemotherapy in August. And it was intense, really hard stuff, very toxic. And after 12 courses, I got lots of neuropathy. So that's basically burning and numbness in your hands and feet and your fingertips and toes. That was the gift that keeps on giving, called peripheral chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy. But it didn't work. 12 Rock'em Sock'em cycles, and it didn't work because after CAT scan, they found out that the cancer went outside of my colon. Now, it didn't spread anywhere yet, but it spread outside of my colon. So again, more surgery, 10.1 inches of colon removed, and more lymph nodes, more margin. I think, again, lymph nodes positive. So we basically that's not good news. That's failing all the treatments. And so a friend or Lisa found out about a clinical trial that was happening. And it was really not about colon cancer. It was about strengthening your DNA. And the trial that I was on for lymphoma strengthened my natural killer cells, my immune system, and it really helped. So right or wrong decision, I consulted with my team, and we decided to go for the clinical trial in downtown Detroit, where they would actually stun gun in the medicine into your shoulder. It's the closest thing to being shot by a gun, they told me. And unfortunately, that June, almost 13 months later, I was diagnosed at a soccer tournament in Texas with my daughter. I went to Baylor Hospital, had a CAT scan, had an ultrasound. They thought my gallbladder had to be removed, that the cancer had spread. I could feel tumors on my ribs. I had it in my liver. I had it in my stomach lining called omentum and peritoneum, and in my bowel. And then that's when S hits the fan, because I am stage 4 metastatic colon cancer. And you do the good Dr. Google on that one, and that's 4% chance of living at 6 months. So it got pretty dark. And we're going for Hail Mary chemo now. Now, Hail Mary chemo, again, very toxic, but I got a piece of good news. I got some regression, and we call it in the cancer world shrinkage, right? And so I make the joke that, Seinfeld, Jerry Costanza, we got shrinkage, and I was happy about my shrinkage, right? So after 4 cycles of getting a little shrinkage, you get more chemo. And I joined ColonTown, this colontown.org, this online resource for patients and caregivers, and Lisa joined as well. And it was so helpful, and it falls right into what you do. You offer support for cancer patients and their caregivers and their families. And this is an online service specifically for colorectal cancer. And I met people that were going through the struggle, that were dealing and trying to understand, that needed support like me. And they helped educate me. They helped mentor me. They helped support me. And it was really helpful for me, because I talked to patients that were in it much longer and also had gone through these surgeries and failed chemos too. And so we got to commiserate, but they got to actually point me in the right direction, looking at this very kind of radical surgery. The mother of all surgery is called cytoreduction HIPAC, and I qualified for it. And what happens is they cut you from chest to pelvic bone, they split you open, okay? And they pick out with microscopic glasses all the cancer they can see, all right? They took out my gallbladder. They shaved my liver. They took out my stomach linings. They cut my bowel, right? And they took out all the live and dead cancer cells. This is a 13.5 hour surgery, usually between 10 and 25 hours. Then they poured hot chemotherapy called mitomycin C, is a chemo agent, sealed me up and rotated me around like a rotisserie chicken so that it could spread in the abdomen and pelvis cavities and kill microcell cancer. That's the theory. Okay. I wake up in the ICU and I press the morphine drip button. I mean, I have 90 staples from chest to pelvic, and the healing has to begin. And there's so much scar tissue from the surgery. It took 1.5 years for them to actually get what I call a true actual CAT scan. There's so much, surgery there. Also, I felt like a ghost. I dropped about 65 pounds. I had to learn how to eat again. I had no stamina. And lucky for the dog to take me out and walk the dog a few steps, and then a few steps further, I built myself back up. And it was hard. The surgery comes with risks. It comes with side effects, and also the just the repair and the getting back to your building yourself back up. But I was up for the challenge, and that's what I had to do. And I wanted to see my daughter graduate high school. She was a freshman when I got diagnosed. And that was the goal I set in front of myself. Plus, I had so much support. This isn't 1989. I had Town. I have friends across the world. I had people cheering me on, people praying for me. And as I was a cancer veteran and a Marine on a mission, I knew I actually had to, get my mind right, do a lot of self-love, a lot of self-care before I could actually help others. I was selfish in my time of need, and people were
You're allowed
there.
to be.
Yes, absolutely. But
You're
they
absolutely
came.
allowed to be.
Thank you. Well, they did, and I learned a great lesson. It's not really what you give; it's what you. It's not what you get; it's what you give. And people were wanting to give to me. They started a GoFundMe. They were dropping by meals. They were checking on me. They were sending me prayer, and I used that, as my superpower to heal and to get better. And I am very blessed and very lucky and very grateful because miracle number 3 worked. That hot chemo worked. It's gotten me to no evidence of disease. I'm 4 years, no evidence of disease, on my way to a 5-year remission. And that's where people want to be when you get those dreaded "we have cancer," "you have cancer" words. So that's a longer story, but that's where I'm at. I survived cancer, stage 4 cancer, 26 years apart, twice. And now I can help other people just like you. Just what we do. It's what we do.
It is. It absolutely is. So do you want to talk about the advocacy? Like, I think that's super important, right? And not only that, but also like knowing your body and knowing when something's off and actually advocating for yourself when you get there, right? Like, you're in the beginning, you guys didn't know what was going on, but the second time through, you were better able to advocate for yourself because you knew a little bit more.
Absolutely. So the best patient is a smarter patient because the doctors can't read your mind. You have to be collaborative in the process. The old days of the doctor telling you what you do and you just go doing it are long gone. You have to be able to have with your teams, your oncology teams, your surgeons, the radio teams, your nurses, really important, the infusion nurses, if you have a therapist, if you have a social worker, everybody, you got to build out your team. And that team is there focused on you. That's your inner circle. Then there's an outer circle. And these are the people that may not live close by, but they care about you and they want you to do well. They want you to survive, and they're cheering you on and they're praying for you. And so very important to build that team. And if you don't have that team, we can help you get that team. Folks like you and I, that's what we do. We actually bring mentors and resources to you that can help if you can't find yourself and do it on your own as well. So that's kind of, what I do as far as my advocacy there. But I am a huge cancer advocate for screening, of all cancers. I don't want anyone to get cancer. It sucks. You know it, and I know it. It's a dismal existence. But I also wear something blue, Every day I have something blue, and I have blue stuff on my desk, and I look at that. And what it does is it allows me to actually intentionally think about all of those others that are in cancer treatment now. And then lastly, it also allows me to memorialize folks that passed away and didn't make it. And I do that very intentionally every single day. It's part of my ritual. I look in the mirror and I say, boy, you are blessed. I am grateful and lucky. And who can you help today? That's what I do. And I do that very intentionally. And that's part of my advocacy. But I also go, as you know, speak on lots of stages and podcasts and educate people on this, because I don't want anyone to get cancer. It's horrible. It's horrible. We know this, you know this. It's just a horrible existence. So that's what we do. And so the other thing, and we'll get into it, I hope, is that during Cancer to COVID, I was able to write a book and become a published author. And I didn't do it in a normal way, but that's it. But my advocacy is very important to me. I am now the chairman of the board of colontown.org, and we help anyone that's been diagnosed. But the first thing is go get screened, and don't go get it. Don't get cancer.
Yeah. Well, screening is absolutely important, but also knowing when there's something wrong with your body, right? Like I knew there was something wrong with my body, and they had to do a whole host of tests in order to find my cancer. And fortunately for me, my gynecologist was willing to work with me and listen to me and acknowledge the fact that it was my body and I knew there was something wrong. I know that a lot of people out there meet resistance with their doctors. It's okay to fire them. It's okay to go
Yes,
find somebody
yes,
else.
yes.
Not only is it okay, it might save your life. Like, and screenings, right? Like the pap smears next week, and 2 weeks from now I've got the mammo, and in January my husband and I are doing a double date colonoscopy.
There you
Like
go.
it's like it's our second time doing it. Like it's super important. It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants that, right? But it's so much easier to have the colonoscopy than it is to have cancer.
Yeah, but Tanya, you mixed in a lot of holistic stuff. I'm not as that way. I'm learning a little bit more about that. I'm not a big meditator, but that's okay. You do you. I am so supportive of people doing that. I have to tell you that my whole thing was just working out, basketball, hiking, biking when the weather was good. That's really where I worked out.
Meditated.
Yeah, that was my spot. That's my stress-free zone. That's where I actually didn't feel like a cancer patient. So I worked hard at that. I had to work hard on eating and gaining some weight, and also getting, my stamina back. But it's the gift that keeps on giving. So we both suffer from this. It's a form of PTSD called chemo brain. And I'm not as sharp in remembering names, but I'm functioning. I'm fine. But there's certain things that I don't know. But I have to give myself some grace with that.
Yes.
And when I play basketball, I can't feel the ball because of my neuropathy, but I can type on the computer. I can drive a car. I can, ride a bike, but it's there and I deal with it. And then I wear my men's Depends on long plane trips. And I understand that digestion and diet and bathrooms are going to be part of my life forever in a more
Yes.
frequent way.
Yep, absolutely. And it's how you view it. You're viewing that as I get to instead of I have to, right? Like I get to go do the thing at the end of this trip. I'm inconvenienced with the Depends, but I get to do this thing. Getting to a point where you actually are living again, right? Like you advocate a lot for survivalship, right? And reclaiming your life or building a new one is part of that.
It is. I would say that it's very simple and very easy to when you get diagnosed to go into a darkness, and you can acknowledge that darkness, but you just can't stay there. And a lot of men and women too, but mostly men, they isolate. They do. They don't share their feelings. So there's a Man Up to Cancer group that I'm in. It's the largest cancer group. It was started just a couple years ago. There's no real science there. It's all support. How do I talk to my kids? My girlfriend left me once I got diagnosed. I had to quit my job. This is men in a locker room supporting each other, and it's really important to go get that support because going this journey alone is not the way you go do it. And going through life alone isn't. We're a pack animal, and so it's very important to find your pack, or create your pack, or let someone like us help you find your pack as well. And so that's really, really important to do that. And so that's what I do. And I've learned a lot from this, and I'm changed from it, but I want everyone to go through their cancer journey. They have to, it's their journey. They're painting the picture. Survivorship's the same thing. There's no real blueprint that one size fits all. We all have to kind of create your own blueprint, unfortunately. But you can take hints from other people. Like, the basic stuff is understood. Good nutrition, good sleep, good hydration, good activity. Those are all common sense things. But I'll tell you that one of the things that I do that helps my endorphins, when you go help somebody else and lift them up, that actually is part of healing. It takes the focus off of me and my, whatever my bad day is or whatever I'm feeling that day. If I go help someone up, you lift someone up. So that's what my whole book is about, is that you lift yourself up with self-care and self-love so that you can go help someone else. And then even larger, go help, your neighbors, and go help your communities, go help the world. And that's my premise on Shining Brightly.
Yes, well, which is not only your book, but also you do a podcast.
I do, but it's actually a movement. So Shining Brightly, is basically what you can do today in this world is to use your light to lift up others. So, the cover of my book has a dove on it for peace, love, and hope, and it's surrounded by a light bulb. It's my energy, and I want to illuminate that through the world. Listen, you can't be Pollyanna and positive every day. I had bad days where I was curled up in a ball. I have days when I'm pissed off. We're human. We're human. That's all that you have to understand. But the first chapter of my book, it's lessons learned from the wise sage of my great grandmother. We call grandmothers bubbies. So Bubby Bertha Budish it could have been Lithuania, it could have been Ukraine, it could have been Poland. No one knew because the boundaries there. They lived in the countryside. She came to this country, and she took me and my sister, my twin, as 5-year-olds, to shopping. And I found a quarter on the ground. And that quarter, I said, "Oh my God, I'm buying candy." I told my sister, "I'm buying candy." And my grandmother, she looked down at me and she's like, "No, you're not. That quarter is not yours. That quarter is God's, and it goes to someone in need." And so the first lesson that she taught us was something called tzedakah, which is giving. It's called the justice of giving. And that stays in our family. Everyone finds money. We put that in like a little, we call it a pushka. It's a little Jewish piggy bank there. And it goes to someone in need. And that's the first lesson, is that you can be giving. You can choose to give. The second thing is a word in Hebrew called chesed, is called live a life of living kindness. Living a life of kindness is you can choose to be kind. You don't have to be always, an ass or a jerk. You can choose to be kind. And then the last tenet that she taught us was something called tikkun olam, that we live in a broken world, and your job is to heal yourself and heal others as best as you can. And that's what we do. And that's the first tenet of what my grandmother taught us. And it's stuck inside of us, inside of me, for the rest of my life. And that's why I made it the first chapter. There's lots of interesting information in the other chapters, but I end with sharing hope, because at the end of the day, like you put on your Wonder Woman panties, right? That was your thing. I wanted to see my daughter graduate high school, and now I've seen her graduate college. I've seen her launch into her career. You have to have a big goal, and that goal is your reason, and that's hope. Hope is what gets you there, but hope is filled with gratitude. It's filled with resiliency. It's filled with just that mindset, as you teach, okay? And I teach, and I live, and you live, to be able to get through the day. Sometimes it's just getting through the day. Other times you have bigger goals and things like that. And so I start with kindness and healing and giving, and I end with hope. And there's a lot of information in between that is very relatable, that I did in the book. And it's again, I'm a least likely published author, but I'm pretty proud of the lessons I learned and the stories that I share, because in one of the chapters, my family, we're fighting about which grandma's brisket is better. So it's just normal family stuff, right? You don't have to always agree, but it's family stuff. And we used to go on vacations with my grandparents to the Catskill Mountains, and my parents did their own version of it, taking the grandkids to Ogunquit Beach, Maine. And hopefully, when I'm a grandpa as well, maybe we'll go up to the northern Michigan. It's just great to carry on traditions and to be able to do that. So it's very relatable as far as that. Lots of good life lessons
Yeah.
in.
I and having your big why, like the thing that carries you through everything, that's super important. A lot of people don't know what their purpose in life is, and a lot of people don't know why they're doing things, right? And these are things that you really need to sit down and figure out. The sooner,
Absolutely.
the better.
Yeah. But again, it can be some small stuff. The book took 3 years. It was a project. It was healing. I walked back my life. I got to speak to my doctors that I hadn't spoken to in 30 years. I spoke to the kids around the neighborhood. I spoke to my camp counselors growing up. I reconnected with my first boss. I reconnected with some of my college professors. And it was people that were impactful in my life. It was really cool to be able to do
Yeah.
that. And not everything made the book. I had 158 Zoom sessions. So maybe book two, but we got 18 chapters, and 18 in Judaism means life. There's 360 pages, which is again 360 is a version of life. Everything with me means something there to live your best life as best you can. And you're going to trip up and you're going to hit speed bumps, big ones and little ones along the way. We're human.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Well, Howard, it was absolutely a delight to have you here, and I will make sure that I'm going to put contact information, your podcast information, and how they can get your book in the show notes.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I really, really appreciate you being here.
I love it. So it's really easy. I'm at shiningbrightly.com, and you can find the book there. You can find my speaking. The podcast is tremendous. You're going to be on a future episode, so I'm excited about that. And just if we could all shine brightly just a little bit each day for ourselves, for others in our communities, I promise the world will be a better place.
Absolutely. Until next time, Cancer Warriors, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.